welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessica. I am going to be hosting Cate Holahan today. She talked about the kidnapping of Alice Ingold, which was a really good read. And you've written a lot of books, but this is my first of yours, and it was a good one.
Thank you.
So first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thank you.
And please tell us a little bit about yourself and then tell us about this book and how the idea came to you. I can guess, but I would like to hear from you.
Sure. So my background is, for years I was a journalist. I wrote for Business Week magazine. I covered tech. And then I wrote for, MSN Money, and I've written for and then I was a television news producer at CNBC. So I covered tech for a while. Oh, and before even that, I was a newspaper reporter for years. So, and then, I wrote my first book, I think it was like 2012, and got an agent, published that. And so now, I guess if you count the Young Rich Widows series, which I write with 3 other authors, I just filed book 11 with my publisher, which will come out next year. If you're talking just my solo books, then this is my 7th and my 8th solo book. But the series is also a big part of what I do too. So I count them both. And as far as the idea, I write, it came from really a few places. Number one is I write from a place of personal anxiety. As a thriller writer, a lot of the things that I choose to write about are things that are concerning to me and keeping me up at night. And I write a lot of my books tie into things that are going on currently. I write domestic suspense, but in a way that I think kind of references things that are going on in the larger world. Probably my first USA Today bestseller was The Widower's Wife, and that one kind of dealt with the aftermath of the financial crisis, while at the same time being a thriller. So with this one, I have a lot of anxiety for my kids who are teenagers and going out into the world, and they're kind of coming of age at this time where we're on the cusp of massive technological change, going from a digital world to a world of arguably, super intelligent computers, right? And it reminded me a lot of the Patty Hearst kidnapping, because that was happening at a time when we were moving from an analog world to a digital world. That happened in the late 1970s, which was the computer revolution was coming to offices. And then a few years later, by 1985, most people would have some sort of a desktop computer in their home. So there are these times where a lot of young people, I think particularly, feel a little unmoored because they're training for something that they're not sure is going to exist in the same fashion. And so I wanted to tap into that, and I kind of felt that there were similarities between what happened around the Patty Hearst kidnapping and now. But then obviously I wanted to reference what's going on today with technological change. And also, for my years as a tech reporter, I kind of got sensitized. I interviewed Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all those guys when I was a tech reporter. And I got this sense of the founder culture of Silicon Valley, where it's like the founder is king, and the labor that goes into making the idea actually come to fruition is, I would argue, devalued. And we can see that just with, the Amazon deliveries. How much did we all rely on that during COVID? And meanwhile, then we hear that, the guys who all drive the trucks can't unionize, and they pee in bottles, and they're driving trucks without doors so they can jump in and out of them faster. And so I wanted to kind of address what I see as this culture that used to be part of just Silicon Valley that has since kind of spread to all of America, which is this lionizing of the founder and the CEO at the expense of all the people that actually make a company go, and then really at the expense of the American worker, right? So that's as the book, I mean, it's a thriller first and foremost, but just as in the kidnapping of Patty Hearst, these people kidnap someone for a reason, and these are all the things that are, fueling their frustration.
So you have Alice's POV, and then you have her parents, and her dad, I believe, is the closest to that founder type.
Yes.
And her mom comes from a wealthy background and money at the same time. And you're kind of watching everything unfold where Alice is kidnapped. Her mom already is sort of not happy with where she's living. She goes to, I believe, Berkeley, right? And
Correct.
Oakland has a reputation. I've been to Oakland and I love Oakland personally.
I do too, but the
Yeah.
mother is a certain kind of person,
Yes,
right?
she
She's
is.
grown up.
She is. Yes. Um, so, it's like it's again for me, I'm like, oh, but Oakland has amazing burgers. And but yes, that is the mother's mentality. And so of course when her daughter is living in a place with no like kitchen with a beautiful backsplash, and she's just like, but we can afford to give you this. The
Right,
daughter is from a different generation, and like she refers to homeless people as unhoused people, which
right.
like is really I suppose just a more sensitive way of looking at somebody's scenario to call. But growing up, Catherine, this is a homeless person. What are they doing living here? And Alice is sort of generationally looking at things from a more nuanced point of view, but she also comes from privilege. And that's the
Right.
other thing that's really important to kind of see in her story. But, so she gets kidnapped and her mother immediately is like, but it was her, that no good ex-hippie boyfriend. Her stupid friends. It's
Yeah.
somebody in
The
in one of the
encampment
tents
that, yeah,
across from
right.
her building. And her father's like, oh well, and I'm making like little finger, like spidery fingers here. I am the CEO of this AI company, and I can solve this with technology and through this brilliance. And then there's again Alice's diary where she's talking about this kidnapping and sort of like where her kidnappers are coming from. And it's not, everybody thinks, this has got to be mo money motivated, but it's not necessarily money motivated. And then things just kind of spiral from there. And I thought it was interesting. So I don't really want to go into those spirals because it'll reveal too much about the story. But the three voices, you have the parents, which are present, and then you have Alice, which is told through a diary.
Right.
Did you always know that that's how you wanted to tell her story versus the parents?
Yes, because one of the things with the kidnapping that, and actually that her parents are dealing with, and really everyone's dealing with in the story, is you don't know whether she's alive or dead. So obviously, if she's speaking in present tense, you're assuming that at least she was alive when she was writing that chapter. So, um, so putting it in past kind of makes it unclear when she's writing this. And as she says, she's kidnapped and locked in a room with, with basically material to write with for a while. So you don't know if she's writing straight through or she's writing a little bit day by day. And so that gives you, um, it raises the specter of maybe, she's not even alive now and her parents are looking for somebody who, they're going to find a body or not find anyone, right? And I thought I wanted to give give the reader that experience, because I think that that is the key with a kidnapping, right? Is that you are operating under the assumption that the person is alive and you can get them back, but there's no guarantee. And I think writing her in past tense kind of did that.
Yeah, it definitely has like I think like a sense of urgency, which you need in a thriller for sure. I did think the whole idea of like she's also telling her parents like, "Oh, you can solve this. You can save me. There's clues," which I thought was really interesting too. And again, kind of going back to, to who Alice is. Like she's absolutely she's like a true crime darling. Like
Yeah.
you have this beautiful, rich white girl whose parents are really well known and she's kidnapped, and this is what the media eats up.
Yeah.
And I yeah.
And it's interesting because since I'm half black, half white, and a lot of times I write characters who are more close to my background. And with her, I really did want to pick kind of somebody who would have this attention. And that's also why the kidnappers pick her as well, right? Is that they're aware that um, she's going to get attention that not everybody would. Um, so, and then obviously there's also that her father is the CEO of an AI company. So it's kind of if you have like an Elon Musk type and then one of their kids are kidnapped, like what happens there? And not that I shouldn't put out a particular person, but that's why I say a type. These people are kind of
Yeah,
larger than
a
life.
very high profile person.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no. I really liked everybody's very distinct voice in this. I liked how you were sort of piecing together who this family was very separately. And it was just, again, it was just a really interesting read. Not to say too much about where it goes, but did you know where it was going when you started writing it?
Yes. I mean, for those who believe in astrology, I'm a Capricorn. I need that control. So like I'm a big plotter and I plot everything out beforehand. And then as I write, the characters will take me in a place where I go, oh, that wouldn't really happen the way that they're developing. And I go back and I replot and then I get back into the book. So there is that back and forth. But yes, I had a very distinct sense of who Alice was. And also, I wanted to obviously there's the political points in the story, but I really wanted to also tell a family story, right? And because I think personally, I'm certainly, nowhere near wealthy like my mom character, but what I can relate to her about is the the desire to control and guide your kid's life as opposed to let it go, and how there are going to be generational differences in what your kids value, in the kind of problems that they're facing and how they approach those problems. And Catherine comes from kind of this stuffy, this world where she's a socialite. Part of her value is in her image, and arguably that's one of the reasons why she even married who she did. And so she has this value system that is very specific to her world and her how she grew up. And Alice is rebelling against a lot of that, I think for good reason. I wouldn't want to be held to those things. So they have this dynamic, and part of it is through this kidnapping for Catherine to realize, you know, what parts of her value system she's tried to force on her daughter that, um, incorrectly, and she has to kind of grapple with that. And also, also realizing that she's kind of fallen into a trap that I think a lot of people do, where we assume because someone is wealthy and successful that they are good, right? And that they have the best interests of human beings at heart, including those closest to them. And it's a weird conflation that we do, because afterwards we act so shocked when it turns out that these very powerful people abuse their power in horrific ways, right? And I think Catherine has suffered from that a bit, in that she believes that, her spouse is creating technology that is going to, bring the world into a better place. And that is, the excuse she's given to kind of subordinate some of her own hopes and dreams, right? To justify why so much energy and attention goes into this man, right? And
Yeah,
I think that she has to grapple with how that's affected her daughter, and that kind of prioritization. And so I wanted to tell really a family story, um, with this backdrop of I think the culture that we're in right now.
definitely. And it really was very good. And there's there's distinct parts to it. So I'm really only keeping my interview with you in the first part because I
Right.
don't really want to
Reveal the twists. Right.
exactly reveal the twists. But it was good. And it was, I think, something that a lot of people are going to be reading and talking about. How long did it take you to write this one?
Uh, well, it's funny. I feel that, I'm on a kind of 2 book a year schedule. So there is some of me that's like the journalist thing where I have 3 months for a first draft and that's what I got and it's gonna get done hell or high water. So there was that, but I think the idea I had been knocking around for a while because I wanted to find a way to tell a thriller story, and I love thrillers because of the stakes and because it is the engine that keeps you turning pages, while and to tell a family story while at the same time, you know, addressing some of the things that give me agita about the times that we're in, and so I guess I had done a lot of research. I read a bunch of not only did I read a bunch about the Patty Hearst kidnapping and kidnappings in general, but I also read a lot about AI. Um, and so this was kind of the fusion of all that research. So the research part took a long time, but from once I start writing, I'm kind of usually by that point I've pitched and sold the book, so I'm on a deadline.
What have you got coming up then? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, so I my next book is Last Looks, which is a story about it on the surface it's kind of a bunny boiler with this woman who hires a stylist to come over to France and style her, but really she wants the woman's life and she has a reason to want revenge for that. But I think more than that, it's a story of how women compete and how they stick together. And there is a bit of a, political backdrop there with with kind of female physical autonomy and reproductive rights. But, really told within the story of like women, the ways that society pits women against each other and then ways in which they band together. But also it also, I think, operates very bunny boiler with a twist.
I feel really funny hearing that term because I know where it's from, and I wonder how many people know where the
Oh, you mean
term bunny
people? I
boiler
That's
comes
right. I
from.
might be too old. The people not see Glenn Close in Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so that yes, the term comes from uh, the movie. It's Fatal Attraction, where which was really unkind to women. It's
Oh, it
so
was
that's
so, it was so, 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 so unkind.
so there was part of me that wanted to kind of do a twist on that's why I wanted to kind of tell a story with that kind of structure, but in a way that would be much more fair to the female characters and really be told through the perspective of the female characters. Because in the 80s, they had this trope of woman falls for man and goes nuts over the fact that he doesn't want her or doesn't want her anymore, and then tries to make his life a living hell. And Glenn Close really embodied that by taking their pet bunny and putting it in boiling water. Uh,
Not,
so
I
that's
mean,
why they're
and
called.
sure, of course, that's awful.
Right.
Not to say anything though about like the men in these situations cheated
Right,
also.
exactly.
So
Glenn
it's
Close
like,
didn't.
like you get like I feel bad for the bunny and the family, but like, I do feel like the cheating husbands in those situations were always sort of let off the hook, right? Like
Not in my books, but in the 80s,
I'm
yes.
talking about the 80s. I'm not talking about your
Right.
book. I'm just talking
Yeah,
about in general. And like,
yeah,
like watching these things and I'd be like, yeah, like, but you're not blameless. You kind of like are also culpable in this situation. And like the villain is always the woman.
right.
Not
And
to say
so,
that she didn't, that the character that she played like
right,
didn't do horrible things, but it's always like that whole like psycho ex-girlfriend trope, right?
right.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, with my new book, Last Looks, I wanted to turn that a little bit on its head. But the fun thing about those 80s stories where they definitely had a great pacing, right? And good momentum. They just were not very kind to the women in them.
Well, I would very much like to read it, and I hope to talk to you about it now,
Oh,
especially now that we've had this conversation too.
that would be great. Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's always funny when because of the way writers work, by the time you're promoting a book, you've written that one 2 years ago and you've already done the next one. So it's always there's a little bit of like you're excited about the thing that you just handed in, and not that I'm very excited about the kidnapping of Alice Ingold, and I'm excited for it to be out there in the world, and I'm hoping it does spark conversation, and I'm hoping also that uh that people, I think sometimes there is this kind of knee-jerk reaction to some rich spoiled characters of just like, oh, I'm not going to like them. And you know in this particular case, certainly not all the characters are rich and spoiled. The a lot of Alice's friends, for example, who are helping in a variety of ways, come from a variety of different income backgrounds and different you know very different backgrounds than she does. But in this particular case, to for the kidnapping to get the attention that it did, it had to be someone at that status, and I wanted to keep it true. I didn't want to have Catherine be this character that's so sensitive to the world because she's been very insulated from the world. So she has to be a bit of a snob, because how could you grow up with that much wealth and not? I mean, there's this one scene in the book which I really like, where Catherine experiences kind of the guilt that comes with asking someone for help. And she's never had to really do that before. And it occurs to her that all of these charity functions where she's paraded these people up there, who have like been the beneficiaries, and she's felt probably only really good about it. And as she should, I mean, she's doing something nice, but she's also giving away money that she was born with, right? And there are all these other people that have to compete for these scholarships and these things that then she's doling out. And she's never associated like, oh, how must that make a person feel to have to ask, and have to kind of like not exactly prostrate themselves, but to be in that position where they're being doled out by my largesse, and what has she really done to earn that largesse, right? So I liked that scene because I wanted that to be flipped for her, and to understand that here it is, she's kind of been congratulating herself on all the charities and everything that she's had, and now all of a sudden her daughter's kidnapped, and she needs other people, and that's not, a place that she's been in before.
Check it out. It's a great book. Thank you so much, Kate. I cannot wait to read Last Looks and maybe talk to you again.
Great. That'd be wonderful, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. So once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast, and we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.